But anyway, let's watch the press conference since nobody wants to play blitz, and we'll keep going with everything. Let me change the scene.
Welcome everyone at the press conference after round 7. We had another decisive result today. Jan Nepomniachtchi won the game, and now the result is 4-2-3 in favor of Jan Nepomniachtchi. My first question goes to Ding.
Okay.
The most critical moment was on move 32. You had 8 moves still to make until the time control increment, and you made rook to d2 and then rook to d3 inaccurate moves. Can you give us an idea what happened at that moment?
Yeah, in the previous move.
Oh, before we get through this, by the way, I want to tell you guys it's very annoying that that they don't have a board showing when they do the press conference. I'm going to say it's very, very annoying because now I'm going to show you. I'll just pull up the game because they mention a point in the game and they don't say anything, and it's really, really annoying. So let me put the game up. So the position that they're talking about is they're talking about this position right here. Well, why am I getting this stupid thing at the bottom with moves? So we're talking about this specific position. Where do I have it? I think let me go here. Yeah, so they're talking about this position. They're talking about this position right here. They don't have the board showing. So I'll tell you what happened. So basically here Ding is 9 minutes. He plays h4 after a 3.5 minute think, and Nepo just snaps the juicer immediately, and here he just can't figure out what to do. Now bishop e5 is the best move and black is better, but basically I'll tell you what happened. He used 4 minutes to play h4, and then he got completely destroyed by this move g takes h4 because he was not expecting it. It looks like an ugly move, opens up the white king more, it doubles the pawn on the edge of the board, and he just couldn't figure out what to do. So when he played h4 and then Nepo took, he couldn't keep it together. Like he spent probably like 2 minutes going like, WTF, what is this g takes h4 move? And then he realized he doesn't know what to do, and then he's got like 3 minutes, and then you try to think, you panic, everything goes downhill instantly. So it would really help if they had a board, but this is the position that they're talking about. So let's go back to the presser. All right, here we go.
For something I realized maybe I was slightly worse after that. I cannot go rook d3, he can take on c5, and then he has rook c8 check. And if I just wait on king g7, he will just play rook f1. If he's stabilized, maybe he's going to be better. So I want to take immediate attention. So I play h4. With the idea take rook d2, but I totally miss rook e2, rook d1, king g2. So after GH, I started to think again, and I couldn't find any way to make the game.
Yeah, so what Ding is saying here is he's saying that basically in this position that he thought rook d2, rook e2, rook d1, probably rook e1 was the only move, and at the very least he can make a draw here. Now this goes back to the whole game strategy, which is earlier there was a very critical moment when I was actually watching the broadcast with Anish and Danya, and like basically at this point somewhere around here, like Danya was saying, okay, bishop takes e4, black is fine, something like this, and Anish was very specific when he said this is a critical moment about trading off the bishops and not keeping the bishop pair. And I 100% agree with Anish with what he said, which he said Ding should have kept the bishops on the board, because once he traded, what I think was going on at this point in the game is Ding thought, you know what, I've got a wooden shield in the middle of the board, I've got a bishop and a pawn for the rook, I cannot lose. So he was thinking about like, I can never lose the game here, and therefore it's fine, as opposed to keeping the bishops on the board, which actually not only does it give him winning chances, but it makes it much harder for white because you can't simplify the game. Once you trade the bishops, and Anish said this very clearly, if you're ever able to trade the rooks or the queens, white is going to get serious winning chances. I think the mindset for Ding already here was like, I've stabilized, I can never lose the game, not realizing if you make a wrong move you could lose, whereas if you keep the 2 bishops on the board, the 2 Bs, you will be completely fine. You might, I mean, you'll have winning chances, but more importantly, it's actually an even better situation where your opponent can't ever simplify. So I think that, you know, what Anish said was very, very important about keeping the 2 bishops versus trading off, even though bishop takes e4 was completely fine. So back to the presser, let's keep going.
To continue, but after the game he told me that I can play bishop d4 after queen c5, maybe it's a chance to draw.
Now, first of all, when Nepos said this, Nepo is smoking crack. Let's be honest. What we get to at this point is Nepo is saying like you could go bishop d4, takes and play queen f4. But let's be honest here. After rook to c1 stopping the check, and you can just go rook g2, this is nowhere near a draw. I mean, this bishop d4 is nowhere near a draw. I mean, maybe Nepo is trying to make Ding feel better, but let's be honest. After takes, pawn takes, queen f4, rook c1, it's GG. I mean, it's just GG. Oh, sorry, I have the wrong scene. Sorry. So yeah, basically at this position, he was saying bishop d4 takes and like queen f4, and maybe there's some drawing chances. But after rook c1, no check on the back rank, queen g4, rook g2 wins. I mean, even rook g3, you just take and go here, and king h2, queen f4, and I think rook g3 checking king h3 is winning because there's no check on f5. So I mean, I don't know what Nepo was thinking. I mean, maybe Nepo actually didn't realize that it was so basic, but there are no chances of drawing after bishop d4. It just loses on the spot. So back to the presser we go. Let's keep listening in.
You have spent a lot of time for this move, rook to d2. Is there a chance that you just somehow disconnected and you just lose the control on time?
Yeah, after g takes h4, it's very hard to play, actually.
Yeah, see, the crux of this game, everything that happened comes down to this critical moment right here. It comes down to this moment. I'll tell you like what happens a lot of times when you're playing games. Like at this moment, the time is even. You see it's 12:21, 9:13. Now, time is not completely even. Nepo has 3 extra minutes, but at this point, the moves are fairly straightforward for both sides. Like white wants to keep pressure on the pawn. White's trying to stabilize, maybe rook f1, maybe rook f4 down the road, but white's trying to stabilize. And what happens is here, when you make your move, if your opponent can play a move right away where you don't have an instant reply, it can become very jarring. So when we get h4 and Nepo snaps instantly, suddenly Ding is like, okay, this has to be a blunder. You spend like 2-3 minutes trying to figure out what's wrong. Now apparently he's saying that he missed his king g2 move. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but regardless of whether he missed it or not, fact is g takes h4 was completely jarring to him. And once he realized that suddenly there's no instant draw, suddenly he's given away the extra pawn that he has here. It's just very hard to sort of regroup, especially with only 5 minutes on the clock. If Ding had maybe 20-25 minutes, I think he could have kept the balance mentally. But when you play a move like this, your opponent takes right away, you spend 2-3 minutes suddenly realizing you don't have an instant draw, you don't have an instant plan either. It's very, very difficult. And of course, he spends way too much time before playing rook d2, and it all falls apart. Let's listen in.
If I just wait here, then play rook f1, then my position hopeless. So I just couldn't find the right continuation during the game.
Right, thank you.
Very true.
And also, Jan, this very same moment, can you please verbalize what have you felt at that moment when you saw this rook to d2, rook to d3 inaccurate moves played way before the time increment?
Well, I'd say the game, like the whole game, was extremely sharp, extremely tense, and I don't know, I felt like I should be doing quite fine, but after f4, suddenly bishop d6 is superb move, and I mean, I didn't really see what to do. So maybe.
Now I will say also, speaking of what Nepo's talking about, this is one of the other, like Nepo has 2 big weaknesses. You know, when you look at his game, there are 2 very big weaknesses that Nepo has. The first weakness that Nepo has is that he moves too fast at various times. Obvious weakness that's shown itself a lot in this match. One of the other big weaknesses that Jan has, I'm aware of the board, you guys, is that Jan is too optimistic. Now, one of the things that we don't stress enough about Magnus Carlsen that I have to say is that Magnus Carlsen is always objective. Like, he never starts feeling like he's completely winning or he's optimistic. He's very, very objective in a way that most other players are not, even at the critical moments. And what we see in this game is that Jan's is a very tense game, but Jan is way overestimating his position here, thinking he's better. Anish mentioned that Jan is over optimistic. So yeah, the second big weakness that Nepo has is he is way too optimistic. Now obviously there are times you should be, there are times you should not be, but it is something where when he says he's completely fine, I actually felt for much of the game that Ding was doing quite well. Like I mean, Nepo probably assumed that with all these pieces on the king side, he's better. But it was very clear to me that I actually thought somewhere around here that Ding was starting to take over the game and get an advantage. Now, obviously, in the situation, How's that a weakness? Because when you're not objective and you overestimate your position, you aren't objective, you don't try to stabilize. So basically Nepo loses complete control of the game here because he's over optimistic. He thinks he's better when he's not, and he actually ends up in a lot of trouble here. Now at this point already, like Nepo is basically saying here he thought he was fine. I mean, I would already here be very concerned if I'm playing this position with white. I'd be very concerned because it's very clear that bishops come off the board. The knight is moving. Your bishop on d3 is not great. Your queen is not great. Your rooks are not great. They're on files that are closed at the moment. And so generally speaking here, I would be very concerned. Like I'll tell you this, if I'm playing this position against Magnus with the white pieces here, I'm already looking for a bailout. I'm not optimistic whatsoever. I'm looking for a bailout, a way to get a bailout and just survive. So you know, it can be a booster, but it can also be very bad. And as we see, like the fact that Nepo thinks he's fine and he says he missed bishop d6 is a move, but even bishop g5 and knight f4 is very chaotic, and it's very unclear what is going on here as well. And I would also be very scared to be playing this position with the white pieces. So that is the other major weakness that Nepo has, is he can be way too over optimistic about his positions. And it's one thing that that Magnus possesses. Somehow he possesses it. I don't know if it's heart rate or what it is, but somehow Magnus possesses this ability to stay very, very objective, even when you feel like you want to like start letting the emotions get in the way. So that is actually worth mentioning, because already here, like after bishop d6, like I'm very scared here with white. Like I would be very worried to play this position, because to me it looks like black is just better. So anyway, let's get back to the presser. Let's keep listening.
Like there were like a lot of sharp lines, but I couldn't like figure out what do I do. So I went to this position, like it's slightly worse surely. I mean this pawn for exchange here, because okay, my rooks placed poorly. And also I was like very skeptical about my position in case if black would play bishop f6 instead of queen d6, because after rook h7, queen d6 is like
bishop f6 instead of queen d6. Which position is this? This is he's talking about this position. He's saying bishop f6 here, that he was skeptical because I guess he thought rook h7, queen d6, and now black has the kebab, or rook d1. The rook on h7, by the way, is horrible here. You can't move the rook anywhere. ha is covered, h4 is covered, so your rook and your queen are just stuck on the edge of the board, but they're not doing anything. So even though you have the double stack, you're still in a lot of trouble here. Black can play rook d2 or rook d1. I actually kind of agree. I think bishop f6 would have been a good move, but queen d6 also makes a lot of sense here, just to put pressure on the d file. It's worth noting, I wonder why Jan is saying he's skeptical, because after queen d6, queen e3 and h5, he put his rook back on c4, and I think that if black was bishop f6, you still can go rook c4. So maybe he's worried about rook h5, who knows, but let's see what he says.
It looks ugly. My rook is stuck on h7, it's never in attack, and my king is weak. So I was really concerned at this point, but after let's say queen d6, at least okay, I could play queen e3, rook c4, and just stabilize a little. So I shouldn't be losing by force or something, yeah. And after it was like suddenly h4, I guess black has all reasons to be ambitious here, but I would say it would be quite normal to make some solid moves, like I don't know, king g7, just rook f5, repeat once or twice.
Yeah, see, what Nepo says here is also very critical. What he says is absolutely correct. So in this position, by the way, once again, it's ridiculous they don't have a board up so that you can't see the moves, but it's worth noting that h4 is such a committal move, whereas here you can probably tickle, like go king g7, maybe like rook f1, even something like this. I mean, I know here it doesn't quite work, so why you can play rook f4, but there are ways to dilly-dally and kill a few moves before time pressure. But instead he goes h4, which is so committal, because either it's a great move or a horrible move. Now if you're a 3500 stonkfish, it's a great move because you instantly see bishop e5 and black is doing great. But if you are a human, it's like it doesn't work that way, because after take, suddenly your mind just you start getting confused because you've given up a pawn and you feel like white can't do this because the pawns are on the edge, king is open, but then you don't see a plan, you panic, it all falls apart. So it's like Jan is absolutely right. Like here I would have played king g7 or bishop g5. Both moves make a lot of sense here. Like even something like this, just dilly-dally, waste your time, kill a few moves, and don't go right into the committal position right here, because after takes you have to prove it. So let's go back to the presser now and let's listen in again.
Twice, and then okay, pass the time trouble, because black has endless moves, basically. Yes, sir, but black could never be worse because of my king is so weak and g5 is control.
Very true.
Yeah, after h4, I felt like maybe it becomes like sharp and you know, let's say 3 results instead of 2.
Also
And
true. Yeah, so what Jan is saying here is he's basically saying that after h4 and G takes h4, now all 3 results are in play. Black can win, white can win, and a draw are possible. Whereas if black doesn't play h4, probably black can never lose here. I would say it's probably like 80% draw, 20% chance that black wins. But you can never lose, especially because you have the classic flying V formation. You control the D file. You can just sort of sit on the position and just wait. So Jan is absolutely right. Whereas when you go h4, now after G takes h4, if you play the best moves, you're going to be a little bit better if you're black. But if you don't play the best moves, white can definitely take advantage and win the game. So I think this move also, if Ding has 25 minutes, I like h4. With 25 minutes, h4 is fine. With 9 minutes here, to use 4 minutes, get down to 5:39 and play such a committal move when you're 9 moves away from time control, big mistake in my opinion. Let's go back to the presser.
Rook d2, rook e2, rook d3. Okay, my first intention was to grab on c5 immediately, but then I saw bishop d4 check. You know, c takes d4 in case, rook d1 check, king g2, queen f4, and I wasn't sure if there is a win for me, because okay, my king is so exposed and there is like queen f1 idea and so on. So perhaps, I mean, okay, I always have a draw, but maybe black is also doing fine. Yeah, I mean, black can hold the draw. So after bishop d4, I can at least try. After bishop d4, I can at least try like taking on d4 with the queen, and play 2 rooks against the queen with the c pawn, pass it. But yeah, it should be probably about equality, but yeah, it would remain very complex. And after he, yeah, you know, suddenly played.
Wait. Am I missing something here? Wait, let me go back to the board. Let me change the scene. So he's saying that they're talking about this position. No, they're talking about this position. I mean, he's saying check, king g2, queen f4, but isn't queen e5 just winning? Am I crazy? Queen g4, you go king f2, check, king f3, and check, you bring the king out. Like, this is just winning for white, because you're also threatening rook c8 and mate in 2. Like, you have the classic right triangle here, and you're also just winning the game. So I don't know what that says about what Jan is thinking. I'm not sure what that says exactly, but let's get back to the presser. Let's listen in.
Rook d3, queen c5, rook d1 check. Yeah, I felt like he completely lost the trace, and here I think my king is super safe, because okay, rook on c4 it controls all sorts of checks from g4, e4, and yeah, basically white, I think, is winning at this point, and also like the time trouble became really severe.
Right. Thank you very much. Ding, we know that you French defense was one of your favorite openings in your childhood, let's say at the beginning of your chess career, but you have not played since 2013, according to the database. You played it here strictly because of the practical reasons, or there were some sort of sentimental reasons to that?
Okay, first of all, I got to be honest. That's like, nobody plays an opening for sentimental value. I mean, you're playing a world championship match. You're not playing an opening for sentimental value. Let's just be clear. That's one of the weirdest things I've ever heard. Like, yeah, in the most important tournament, you're going to play an opening for sentimental reasons.
I think both reasons exist. Actually, during a walk with Richard back in Hangzhou, I told him I may play French defense, but it's half joke, half serious, but he take it seriously. Instead, he insists me I can try this French defense to surprise my opponent, and I take his advice. I prepared a lot for this game. The opening phrase was,
But you know what's actually very interesting about this opening? What's really interesting about Ding choosing to play the French in this game is the fact that Jan Nepomniachtchi in 2019 and into 2020, when the candidates happened, he was playing the French defense with the black pieces. So it's very interesting that Ding trusted the French was playable against somebody who was playing that as their main opening for all of 2019. Well, not all of 2019, but in most 2019 and into 2020, who in fact played in the candidates in the first portion. So it's actually quite interesting that Ding chose to play it. I think it's kind of ballsy. I will say that. I think it's very ballsy that he chose to play the French against somebody who was playing that at the top levels in 2019 and 2020. So I do give a lot of credit to Ding for playing, because I really do think that most players would pick an opening that Jan had not played that frequently. Like, for example, say a Hikaru Khan. I mean, I don't know what else, maybe a variation of Sicilian, but probably not a French, because Jan was playing in 2019 and 2020 as his main opening weapon against 1e4. All right, back to the presser. Let's listen in.
Yeah, the opening was the one which I played in my childhood, but now the theory has developed a lot of, so it's not the old French. It can be called some new French idea variations. Yeah. So, but I played the game. I think not so bad, but just in the end I messed up things.
Right, and we saw on cameras that when Jan played the first move, you took some time to make your decision. Was that your decision that you...
Yeah, I mean, Ding played a great game. I'll tell you guys what happened. Ding got everything he wanted. He played an opening as a surprise. Nepo did not have some great preparation to punish him in the French, and he got a better position. I don't want to say Ding was winning, but Ding should not have lost this game. So everything went perfectly up until he played this H4 move. And this is why chess is a terrible game to waste your time on, you guys. Because when you play chess and this happens, there is no worse feeling. He did everything right. You come up with the opening surprise. You study it well. You get it. Your opponent does not have a great way of playing against it. You get an advantage, one or two decisions, and suddenly you go from like being a hero to being a complete zero. So that's why chess at the top levels is very, very brutal. Very, very brutal.
You made on board, or you were already prepared, you made this decision earlier, it's just you were going through some process?
Of course, I prepared a lot for this game in the French defense. I just want to recall a lot of things, then play this move.
Okay, thank you. Jan, probably this was not a complete surprise to you.
Has this ever happened to me? Yes, you guys. I can give you a great example. You guys are asking me, has this ever happened? Okay, I'll let me find a game where this happened. It was in the candidates. Okay, let me find the game. La-di-da-di-da. It was round number. Let me find a game. I'll find a game specifically because you guys are asking me for a game. All right, let's pull up a game very quickly. So we have this game between Sergei Karyakin and Hikaru Nakamura. Yeah, this works. I think you can see the board. This was in the FIDE Candidates tournament in 2016. Now I'm going to just skip straight through. And we get to a critical moment. I'm still struggling a little bit. Yes, we get to a critical moment right around here. Now, at this point, this is in the Canada's tournament 2016, and I have about, I want to say, like maybe 8 minutes left on my clock. I don't have a lot of time, and this is move number 29. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm feeling under the pressure. I'm not sure what's going on exactly. And here I play this horrible move, knight takes g3, which is a complete blunder, and loses the game. Now, again, getting low on time, feeling the nerves, the pressure, everything, I decide to take. And after takes, I assume that I'm winning. I'm not winning, but after takes, queen e3, it's check, and I'm hitting both the knight and the king. If white blocks, I take the rook. I win the game, right? It's all good. White moves the king. I take the juicer. I should be okay. But of course, I conveniently missed that white has this move queen to f2, and after I take the juicer, there's rook c7, creating the classic kebab, attacking both the bishop and the pawn at the same time. Move the bishop, game over. If I play rook f8 guarding the pawn, white takes the bishop, white wins. So you guys wanted an example, and this is one example where basically I play check, he blocks, I take, rook c7 occurs in the game, I play f5, he takes, and I lose the game. So this is one example of it happening to me where like it's slightly different because I wasn't better in the position, but I did everything I wanted to. I had the great preparation. I was only a little bit worse than this Queen's Indian. Get low on time, I just make it outright blunder, and I lose the game in the candidates. So these sorts of things do happen to everybody, and of course I've spent most of my life playing chess, so it's not the only example of a horrible blunder that loses the game. So back to the presser. Let's get back to the press conference, and let's keep listening in.
And you demonstrated to be prepared in the opening, but before the match, how would you have rated possibility of having to face French defense in this match?
I'd say French defense is completely okay. Yes, so it's nothing wrong. The perhaps the only problem is that, I mean, if white like expects French defense, it could be tricky, yes. So where white could dig somewhere deeply and try to test black in some critical lines. And knight d2 is of course not a critical line, but knight d2, I always felt this is like some safe, very safe small edge for white. Very small, but very safe. Yeah. So, I mean.
So also, I'm going to tell you guys something else. You know, there's a certain guy out there who's not playing in this match. A certain guy from Norway. I don't know where he is in the world right now. And that person from Norway is probably watched the game and maybe the press conference. And his opinion or his respect level of Nepos' preparation probably went down significantly. No, we're not talking about Jan Ludwig Hammer, but thank you. But I'll tell you why, because basically in a world championship match, your opponents are spending months upon months preparing for many different openings. And the fact that Nepo played this tirage, he didn't play like one of the very cutting edge lines in the advanced French or in the Winnowar. It makes you wonder exactly like how deep the prep was, or I mean, if he hadn't looked at it recently or what was going on. Because I think like Magnus, whenever he looks at the game, if he hasn't looked at it, he's going to be legitimately surprised because he's going to be like, wow, this was Nepo's best preparation against the French. He's going to be very surprised. So I think that is one thing that even myself, and I think Anish and probably a lot of us are overestimating. So I think we've all felt that Nepo is this incredible preparation, not to take anything away from his prep because his prep is very good, but we expect him to be like playing the cutting edge lines against every opening and blowing people away. And I would say like as example, if this happened in a game like Fabiano was playing, even if Fabiano was not expecting a French, Fabiano would have some clear-cut idea, something very cutting-edge, some cutting-edge theoretical line that he would have played against the French, whereas Nepo played something that was very slow and very, very quiet. So it's very interesting to note this, and I do assume that now, based off of today's game, Ding is definitely going to be playing more opening surprise and playing very much off the cuff to try and imbalance things, because I think you have to assume that Nepo's prep is not necessarily where you would have thought it was before the match began. Let's keep going.
You'll get crazy if you like prepare like each and every opening for every game. So I had an idea. So in case of the French, I'll play let's say my stuff, which I used to play a lot, I think, online, and we had like I would say a few games against Sasha Grishuk in this line. Yeah, so with successes from both sides at some point. Yeah, so. But I always thought that this like bishop e7, knight c6 should be somewhat forced for black, and I was slightly surprised because I think black is trying to be more, let's say, more principled on this line, like after 95, some bishop c5 ideas, or even b6, bishop b7. At least I can recall Sasha played something like this against me. So, yeah, I guess but it was quite a smart choice, like. And, I mean, probably every side got what he wanted.
All right, thank you.
Again, I find it that this, by the way, again speaks to the optimism. And I know this after the game in Nepo won, but like I'm gonna be honest, like looking at this game, I don't think everybody got what they wanted out of the opening. Like already in this position, somewhere around here, like I don't like this position for white. Like I know computer thinks it's maybe smallish for white, but already here I do not like this. I think black's moves are much easier than white's moves, and honestly in this situation I would prefer to be black. I would already be unhappy with what's going on around this point. So it's interesting to note that, I mean, Nepo won the game and probably is riding the high, but if we're being truly objective about the situation, I mean, I don't agree with that at all. I think honestly, black got everything he wanted. I think that it's not actually as great for white as Nepo thinks it is. And that is just interesting to note that Nepo seems like he thought he got what he wanted. Whereas if I have this position somewhere around this point after G6, I'm not happy here. I'm not happy with the white pieces. I would not want this position. I would consider this to be an opening failure. We're not recording a video. This will probably end up being a video, but no, it's interesting to note sort of the overconfident, maybe not overconfident, but the overly optimistic view he has. Because I think this opening was a complete failure for Nepo. I think Ding got everything he wanted and then some. So that's my general take. But anyway, let's get back to the presser and let's keep listening in.
And Ding, there was the moment on move 8, knight to c6, if I may ask about that.
Great move, by the way. Knight c6 was a great move. Great move.
You ruined the pawn structure with that move on the queen side. Can you explain the advantages of this move, why you went to that decision?
If
Knight
I'm
c6,
not,
knight c6.
Okay, I will say, before Ding answers this question, I will just tell you guys, I thought knight c6 was a brilliant move. I don't think it's been played before. Let me change the scene, of course. I think it's a brilliant move here because it's very easy to play. You just want to go c5, bishop b7, and open up the diagonal for the bishop. I think it was a great decision here. I think it was a great decision to open up the scope for the bishop. Fantastic. I love knight c6. I think it was a great move. I don't know if it was like Richard's prep, Ding's prep, who came up with it, but fantastic concept. And saying that it ruins the pawn structure, I guess you can say that, but I think it's a fantastic move. I think it's fantastic. So anyway, back to the presser. Let's change the scene.
Forgot my preparation. I guess I remember it was part of my preparation. Just end up take castle, something like this.
Have you planned some potential kingside attack with that, with bishop b7?
No, my preparation basically ends there.
Oh, okay. All right. And also, like every day you come here with the surprises in the opening. Is that the part of your general strategy for the match to be unpredictable in the openings?
I can only say that this French defense is until now is only for this round. Yeah, I don't know what will happen next.
All right, thank you. And my last question to Jan, and then...
Yeah, so I would say, actually, I agree with what he's saying. Also, it cannot be understated the influence of having somebody like Richard Rapport who's working with Ding, because Richard Rapport is somebody who plays all over the place. He plays great openings, he plays bad openings, sometimes he plays losing openings. He does everything like on all ends of the spectrum. So I think having Richard Rapport actually working with Ding is very, very good on the one hand, because the unpredictability seems to be there. And thus far, I mean, you know, if Ding had not lost today, I would have said that like the influence of Richard has been really, really good. In fact, I think it is, regardless of the fact that Ding blundered. So I think it's very good that he's actually working with Richard, because unpredictability is something that I think is really important in the match.
Give the floor to journalists. Jan gave us the impression of being a little bit tired today. Could you rest well yesterday on the rest day, or were you still affected by the things how it went on game 6?
No, I wouldn't say I felt like extremely tired. I'd say after a rest day, normally you're not too tired. But since we have like sofa in the lounge, I felt like I got to make some use of this.
Okay, first things first, like, you're never going to answer this question honestly, because if you say you're really tired, that makes your opponent feel really, really good. But I'm going to be honest, Jan here, like, I've played a lot of tournaments over the years with Jan, and Jan is tired. You can see it in his face, like the pressure of playing in this match. He is tired. And so like the whole notion of trying to ask and get some honest answer is just not going to happen. But he is tired. Like, you can totally see the way he's looked over the last few games. Like, they're both tired. They're both like really dealing with pressure.
All right, thank you for the answers, and now it's time for the press. Please, Mike.
Thank you. Mike Klein with chess.com. My question is for Grandmaster Jan Nepomniachtchi. Going into this match, when you saw that the time control had no increment until move 60, this was the first day where I think it really mattered a lot. Did you think that was an advantage for you, this time control?
No idea. So it could be like a vice versa situation. Yeah, like.
By the way, just to be clear about this question about the time control, I'm pretty sure the players just signed the contract. I'm pretty sure there's no debating the time control. Just to be clear, I'm pretty sure they just signed the contract that FIDE sends them, and that's that, because they have a standardized time control. So there's none of this like you could have had a different time control or anything else. Let's just be clear on that.
But I'd say maybe I played slightly more games with this time control recently, but I don't think it makes some difference. Yeah, so I guess today, like, I was sort of lucky to see this h4, and like suddenly Black has to make some strong moves to keep up the initiative. Otherwise, it's just like a free pawn from me, and which is also important. It opens some like nice files for rooks like gf and then h5, and yeah, my king would go to h3. Yeah, so in some lines. So I guess yeah, as it happened, of course, it gave me some favor. but I wouldn't, I wouldn't rely on these too much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have more questions from press? Please feel free to come forward. We have microphones on both sides. Mike, let's go. Second question.
Still for Jan Nepomniachtchi, now that we're halfway through the match, I know you said going into the match you wanted to play perhaps a little truer to your style in this match. Do you feel like now that we're halfway through, you can say that you've done so to this point?
Well, depends on what you're supposed to be closer to my style, yeah. So like no draws or something, yeah, or what? Okay, I just try to play chess, yeah. But I mean, whatever you do, like however you play, you get to play well. I mean, and then the game is not like won't end in the opening, yeah, or right after the opening normally, yes. So it's still everything to be decided later. So well, I just try to play, yeah, but I don't think I can even try to specify.
The results are so completely different than from 2021. Do you feel different given the fact that we have such a seesaw battle?
Well, I mean, okay, yeah, clearly I didn't expect anything like this. So like a lot of punches, yeah, to both sides, but yeah, I guess no one actually expected, yeah. So perhaps people for at least for some time wouldn't like state that okay, classical chess is dead or something, yeah. So it can still, I mean, okay.
All right. Well, I'm gonna give the actual answer of what you want to say here. So the actual answer is that yeah, it's been a very good match, but in terms of like all the decisive results, there's a good reason for it, and it's because here neither player is clearly better than the other player. Whereas when either one of these guys plays against Magnus Carlsen, what you're trying to do against like the greatest player of all time in Magnus Carlsen, you're trying to stay solid. You're trying to be this rock where you don't lose any games. You're trying to be super solid so that you don't lose any games, and you're hoping you get like 1 or 2 games there where you get some glimmer of hope with the white pieces and you can take it to him and beat him. But that's what you're doing. So like the whole mentality and everything about the match is just completely different because neither player can be like, oh yeah, I'm just much better than the other guy. But when you're playing against Magnus, it's like, you know, he's the better player, you know, he'll play random positions better than you will, so you have to do the great prep. You're trying to hang on, and hopefully you get 1 or 2 chances with the white pieces where you can beat him. That's just how it is. Anyway, let's keep going.
I'm not sure if it's fun, but it's exciting for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, and as you just quoted this, are you following social media while you're playing match?
I'm trying to like see as
little,
as
yeah.
possible. So if I occasionally see something, I immediately close everything. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Obviously.
Close my browser and plug off from the electricity.
What about you? How often do you use social media to get some information?
Not so much.
I mean, that's just a question that any top player would tell you instantly. When you're playing a major event like a World Championship or Candidates, you are not looking at social media at all. Like, you are not looking at it. Like, even during the Candidates when I was playing it, I did my recaps. That was the extent. Maybe I'd make like 1 little tweet or something, but you're not looking at the replies or anything else. You literally are not looking at social media. It's just that simple.